Good morning, friends. I'm Steph Gongora. Some of you know me, Casa Colibri, on Instagram and social media. Welcome to my beginner-friendly core integration and moving from the core flow. So this will be a little bit on the shorter side. We'll be moving slowly, paying attention to details, trying to get that nice, light, stabilizing core activation that will help us move with grace through a variety of postures. A lot of times we think about core as that rectus abdominis or that six-pack ab muscle and a lot of crunching, a lot of sit-ups. And we'll be doing some light crunch movements today, but in general we'll be trying to integrate and activate the entire body of the torso, front, back, side body, in an effort to understand how to use it as we move through transitions. Again, I'll apologize, like always, for any construction, jungle, or puppy interruptions here. You might be able to hear Koiko running around in the background, playing with his toys. I'm sure he'll smash into the camera at least once, or me. So please have patience with that. But we'll be starting today on our back. And if you do want props, 2 blocks might be really helpful for today's class. If you don't have blocks, then some big sturdy books can work really well. So gather your things and I will meet you on your back, on your mat. Let's start with your feet planted a little bit wider than hip distance is fine. Allow the knees to come hang towards the center and just lightly rest your hands on your belly. For now, close your eyes and think about softening or melting into the mat. So just releasing any muscular hold that you have, maybe relaxing the skin between your eyebrows, tuning into the flow of the breath, not yet changing it, just observing. Is it shallow? Is it deep? How heavy can you sink those sit bones? How heavy can you weigh down the shoulder blades with the weight of the body? All 4 corners of the soles of the feet gently resting on the mat. And just allowing your body this time to transition from busy modern day life into a space where we're ready to open and experience new things, challenge our bodies. And just relaxing here for just a few moments. Keeping your hands on your belly, I want you to start to think about sending the breath down to the belly. So as you inhale, you'll feel the belly button rise up underneath your hands. And as you exhale, you'll feel it sink back down. Perhaps starting a slight constriction at the back of the throat here, warming the breath, slowing the breath. You can make a slight audible noise, almost like you're fogging up a mirror. So as we continue breathing, feeling the belly lift with each inhale and sink down with each exhale, let's start adding some counting to this to make sure that we have some nice, long, even inhales and exhales. So let's get on the same breath. Take a deep inhale through the nose. As you exhale, part the lips side out. Empty. Inhale through the nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale through the nose. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep going. Counting or not counting, just keeping the length of your breath, the broadness, the balance of inhale and exhale, and the balance of the rise of the belly on that inhale, almost as it's pushing into your hands, and the sinking down towards the spine on the exhale. And maybe you start to exaggerate that motion just a little bit. Each inhale ballooning the belly up, and each exhale sinking the belly button down so much so that the low back starts to press into the earth. One more complete round of inhale and exhale. You can keep the eyes closed, but walk the feet in so they're hip distance apart. And then lift the shins off the ground. So you want the shins parallel to the mat. Take your big toe mounds together and press them into each other, flexing the feet. Take your hands to your low thighs. And you're forming a 90-degree angle both with your hips and your knees here and your feet. So lots of 90-degree angles. And with your hands, pushing into your upper thighs. Push with about 20% pressure. And push your legs back into your hands with that same 20% pressure. Now you're going to find something happens in your low belly. It turns on. This shouldn't be a dramatic movement. We're just pushing with 20% pressure. But you should feel something stabilize in the central column here. The most inner or deepest ab muscle is our transverse abdominis, our corset muscle. And it's really important for protecting the spine, for protecting the organs, and just finding stability as we move through these postures. It's also known as the float muscle. That's what's going to help you float not just to things like handstand pressing, but also bringing the foot to the top of the mat from downward facing dog and just moving with a sense of grace and fluidity. Keep pushing the hands into the legs, 20% effort. Low back presses gently into the mat. Now we're going to try to continue that belly breathing here while we keep this push on the legs and the push back from the legs into the hands, which is going to be a little bit more difficult because the TVA acting like a corset makes it harder for us to balloon our belly out. But that's part of the challenge here. So keep the even pressure of the hands into the legs and the legs into hands. This is an isometric movement, so we're balancing the movements out and we're not going anywhere. And as you inhale, feel the belly button rise, maybe just slightly. As you exhale, feel the belly button fall. That should be a little bit easier than that inhale. Inhale lifts the belly button. Exhale lowers the belly button. You can take one hand off your legs and put it on your belly if that helps you experience this more as you continue moving with your own breath. Inhaling to lift the belly button. Exhaling to lower. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Carefully release the hands away from the legs, but leave the legs as they are. Take your hands to the inside edges of your hip bone. So if you take them right down at the hinge of your legs into your hips, you should feel some bony prominences. This is your ASIS, your anterior superior iliac spine, or your hip bones. Take your fingers in there and help to elongate your torso. So think about pulling your hands away from you as you lengthen out the low back. Press the low back gently into the mat. Now we want to keep our hands here to affirm that our pelvis is not moving. And if you just want to experience that for a second, you can let your hips kind of swing and your legs move back and forth to experience what it is like when your pelvis is moving. So you can feel those hip bones moving underneath your fingers. And then come back to that same position. Press the low back gently into the mat. Grab onto your hip bones for stability. And as those stay nice and stationary, so we're setting the pelvis, start to gently bicycle the legs, trying not to move the pelvis if at all possible, trying to keep that same light engagement of the core that we had when we were pushing the legs into the hands, hands into the legs. So maybe lengthening out your bicycle a little bit, moving very slowly here. It should just be light core work. So you should feel, again, about that 20% engagement in the low belly as we send this movement from the legs, and we do that by setting the pelvis and stabilizing the core with that TVA. So almost like everything was sucking slightly in towards the midline. Again, low back presses gently into the mat. And let's wander our legs over towards the right just a little bit, maybe rocking just onto the right sit bone. Left sit bone lifts. Again, I'm still keeping my pelvis stationary. We're just rolling onto the side slightly. Coming back through center, let's take it over to the left. So these movements can be as small or as large as you like. Let's come back over to the right. And the left. And now if you feel like you can keep your pelvis mostly stable, you can bring your hands into this. So lifting your hands up, maybe even lifting your shoulders slightly up, getting that slight crunch motion. Now we're bringing the rectus abdominis into play here as we crunch slightly. Lifting the shoulders as we're on the right sit bone. This is called wandering astronaut, coming over to the left. I learned it at a yoga medicine seminar. It's a very formal name. And again, we're just focusing on that setting of the pelvis and the toning of the inner ab muscles. So if you touch your belly, it should feel hard. Maybe wandering back over to the right. And your arms are just kind of loose here. We're lifting up lightly through the chest. And even the legs, they're not super engaged. They're just floating, moving backing over to the left. Just getting some light core toning. This is that same movement. Move it over to the right. That same level of activation and integration you should have as you always move throughout your vinyasa practice. Moving over to the left. And arms and legs come up to the sky. Release all muscular activation. Dead bug. So just hang there as if you're hanging in pudding or thick soup. Just let the limbs drain. Whew. Pull the knees in towards the armpits. Take your hands to your shin bones and begin to rock up and down along the spine. We'll be making our way to a comfortable seat. So, Sukhasana, or easy sit, crossing at the ankles, knees are wide. If this is uncomfortable for you, you can take one of your blocks and sit on it just to help you find some lift. So we talk a lot about the pelvis today and how that plays into the stabilization of the core. And sometimes it helps to allow the pelvis to move so that we can understand what it means to set it. So we're going to take some cat-cow in this Sukhasana position, moving slowly so that we can focus on little details, especially paying attention to the movement of the pelvis. And I want you to think about your pelvis like a bowl. And as we come into anterior tilt, we tilt the bowl forward, so as if the contents would spill forwards in front of us. And as we come into posterior tilt to the tuck of the tailbone, we're resetting the bowl nice and straight. So we're going to practice that in cat-cow And I want to see if you can pay attention to integration and activation of that belly with that same 20% effort. So touch your belly and see if you can gently harden it just to that light position of having some stabilization there, which we can even maintain as we come into that anterior tilt or the spilling forward of the pelvis. Of course, that's hard, and that's why finding the core and things like back bends are very difficult, but it's really important that we can do that. So take our hands to our knees, and as you inhale, navel still pulls lightly to spine, but we want to think about tilting the pelvis forward, so spilling the bowl, pulling your hands back towards your body as you pull your heart through. Push the back of your head back, almost like you're giving yourself a double chin. Now touch your belly. Is it still nice and active here, or are you just kind of dumping forward? See if you can find that activation as you find broadness across the collarbones. Squeeze the shoulder blades together and down to elongate the neck. Next exhale pushes your hands down and away from you. Tilt the tailbone down, so now we're resetting the pelvis into that posterior tilt. Allow the space to come between your shoulder blades. Tuck your chin down towards your chest and suck your navel in towards your spine. Next inhale pulls you back through forward. Tilt your pelvis forward so sit bones flare out and wide behind you. Push the back of your skull back. Squeeze the shoulder blades down and together as you lead with the sternum. Core is still engaged here, even in the slight back bend. Next exhale pushes you back through cat pose, so feel the space you create between the shoulder blades. Tuck the tailbone under so you're rocking towards the back of your sit bones here. Inhale brings you towards the front of your sit bones. Push the back of your head back. Exhale moves you to the back of your sit bones, grabbing onto your knees for support here so you don't roll back. Inhale brings you through. Exhale pushes you back. One more time, moving with your own breath. Coming back to a neutral sit. So now that you've experienced that anterior and posterior tilt, can you find something nice and neutral? Nice length through the spinal column, drilling down through both sit bones here. Take your right hand to the outer edge of your right hip. As you inhale, lift your left arm up towards the sky. And as you exhale, reach it on over to the right, finding a nice side body stretch. Inhale brings you back up. Exhale reaches you over towards the side. Inhale, lift. Exhale, reach. Now you can keep going like this, or you can bring the right arm into play here. So as you inhale, the right arm would lift up towards the sky as well. As you exhale, the right arm reaches directly over towards the right. So now we're turning this into a slight right side body crunch and left side body lengthening. Inhale reaches you up. Exhale, right arm reaches over, left arm reaches over. Inhale, up. Exhale, reach to the side. Drill down through your left sit bone here. Inhale, up. Exhale, reach it on over to the right. Really root down through that left sit bone. One more time. Inhale, up. Exhale, reach it over. So I'm reaching far with my fingers to the right as my sit bones drill down into the left. Slowly come back to center. Sprinkle your left fingertips outside of your left hip. Inhale, right arm lifts. Exhale, reach it over towards the left. Side body stretch. Inhale, up. Exhale, reach it to the left. Inhale, up. Exhale, reach it. Inhale, up. Exhale, reach. Keep going, or start to bring that left hand into motion. So as we inhale, the left arm also reaches up. And as we exhale, it reaches directly out to the left. Right arm reaches over as well. Inhale, up. And exhale, left. Inhale, up. Exhale, left. Right sit bone drills down into the mat. Inhale, up. Exhale, left. Navel still engaged. Inhale, up. Exhale, left. One more time. Inhale, lift. Exhale, left. And coming back to center, shaking out the shoulders if they need it here. You might also have felt some warming sensations as we wake up and warm up the shoulder girdle. We're going to make our way into a tabletop position. Take your time to get there. In your tabletop, hands are underneath your shoulders, knees are underneath your hips. Now this can be as simple or as difficult of a posture as you would like. You know, a lot of times we think about tabletop and we're not even actually thinking about it. We're not muscularizing, we're not activating. So pose doesn't have to be crazy complex to feel difficult, right? Let's make this one a little bit more active. So I want you to think about rocking to the inner edges of your knees, almost like you were squeezing an imaginary block between your thighs. Root down through the tops of the feet here. Take your hands, turn them out about 5 to 10 degrees from the midline. Now look down at your elbows. Bend them out to the side, out wide, and then wrap them towards the back of the mat, keeping a micro bend here. So we don't want to do this blasting forward or this hyperextension of the arms that we see so many times in down dog, in plank, in tabletop. This is just stacking bone on bone. This isn't working your muscles. So as you wing the elbows out and then you wrap them back, you're starting that external rotation of the arm bones, that wrap of the triceps that's going to help you really build that muscle. So keeping this micro bend in the arms is really important here. Root down through the inner edges of the hands. They tend to grow a little bit light. Now think about dragging your hands towards your knees, but your core is going to stop you from actually moving forward as you drag your hands towards your knees. That's that isometric movement. So you should feel your low belly turn on. Keep rocking to the inner edges of your knees. And to find a little bit of broadness across the collarbones, keep the pulling back of the heels of the hands, but also think about widening your hands out to the sides of the mat. So hands are pulling back and widening out. Navel pull to spine, nice neutral spine. Now reach long through the crown of the head and out back through the tailbone. Suddenly, tabletop pose is so much more difficult. Keep the wrap of the triceps. Keep the micro bend of the arms. Keep rocking to the inner edges of the knees. Keep all of this position. Set that pelvis so as if you had your hands on your hip bones. Do not move your pelvis. Transfer the weight into the right leg. Send the left toes back behind you. Moving slowly, seeing if you can do so without shifting the weight too much or moving the pelvis. Stay here with your toes on the ground or gently lift your left leg up towards parallel. Trying to find that movement from the back of the leg and from the left glute without moving that bowl of your pelvis. Stay here or maybe extend the right arm long. Length from the crown of the head, out through the back heel. Pull the left hip bone down slightly, has a tendency to flare up. All 5 left toes point towards the mat. Just a fully integrated sunbird here. Slowly lower the right hand, lower the left toes, and then pull the left knee in. Taking it to the other side. Again, let's reset our tabletop position. Wing your elbows wide. Wrap them towards the back of the mat. Micro bend here. Rock to the inner edges of your knees. Pull the heels of your hands towards your knees, and then spread your hands out just slightly from the midline. Keep all of that. Think length from the crown of the head, out back through the sit bones. Belly button pulled towards spine. Without moving the pelvis, see if you can back the right toes up, straightening the right leg. And then maybe using the power of the back of the right leg, lift the right leg up towards parallel. All 5 of the right toes point towards the ground, keeping the weight nice and even in the hands. Length from the crown of the head out through the right heel. You can stay here or you can extend the left arm long. Making sure not to lock out this right elbow here, so keep that micro bend, keep that tricep wrap. Rooting down through the inner edge of the hand, reaching long through the left fingers and the right heel. Slowly lower the left hand, slowly lower the right toes, and then bring the right leg back in. Tuck your toes. Again, wing your elbows wide. Wrap them towards the back of the mat as if you were screwing your hands away from each other like jar lids. The hands don't actually move on the mat, but we get that nice external rotation of the upper arm bones as we feel some space come between our shoulder blades. Now, let's find some of these isometric movements again. So rock to the inner edges of your knees. Pull the heels of your hands towards your knees, so much so that you can almost bring your chest slightly through your arms. Navel is still pulled towards your spine. So it's like a tiny cow pose. As you exhale, push your hands down and away from you. Flare your sit bones out and back behind you. Navel pull towards spine. Hover your knees 1 inch off the ground. Hover. Make sure your belly is doing some of the work here, so you're not just dumping forward. Thinking about that 20% effort. Squeeze an imaginary block between your thighs. Lower your knees so that they're hovering 1 millimeter off the floor. Maybe you tap one. Maybe you tap the other. Maybe you tap both at the same time. Just really light taps. Again, look down at your arms. Are they micro bent or have you locked them out? Micro bend them and then maybe even bend them a little bit more to challenge yourself. Slowly, much slower than you'd like to, tilt the sit bones up towards the sky and start to straighten the legs towards downward facing dog. Now, first downward facing dog of the day. So as you get there, take some time to invite movement in, pedal it out. Maybe bending both or one knee at a time, rocking back and forth, whatever feels comfortable. And then when you're ready, finding some stillness here in your downward facing dog. Your heels can stay lifted. There can be a generous bend in the knees. Sit bones flare out and back behind you. Take a minute to look up at your arms. Are they locked out? Are you focused so much on dropping your chest down to the mat that you're not paying attention to the integration of the arms into the shoulder girdle? So again, wing your elbows wide. You may have to lift up a little bit to create space to do this. And then wrap them towards the back of the mat. As you do so, root down through the inner edges of the hands. Keep this tricep wrap, so keep the broadness that you've created between your shoulder blades. And then gently push the ground down and away from you and get into the shoulder stretch. Down dog is also a very active posture that we think about a lot of times as a resting posture, but it can be as active as you would like to make it. Take one more deep breath here, and then slowly begin to tiptoe your way towards the top of the mat, taking your time. You can keep a generous bend in the knees. We're making our way to Ragdoll. Take your time to get there. Once you do, feet are hip distance apart. A very generous bend in the knees, so much so that you can lay your low belly down onto your thighs. You're not worried about touching your nose towards your legs. You want to think more about dragging your sternum down towards your mat. So a nice generous bend in the knees. Do that. Flare the sit bones out and back to find some length across the low back. Grab opposite elbows and just hang here. Low belly on thighs. And again, no matter how much bend in the knees you need to do that, please take it. Just allowing the back of the legs to open lightly. You can even here experiment with how very small changes have very big differences, have very big effects. So rocking to the inner edges of the feet, how does that change this posture? Maybe your inner thighs light up. Maybe you feel your lower legs light up. Flaring your sit bones wide and back while you keep that rocking to the inner edges of your feet. Suddenly there's more broadness across the low back. Hugging the navel in and up. Maybe that creates a little bit more space to drip your sternum down just a little bit more. Carefully release your elbows. Keep the generous bend in the knees, and one vertebrae at a time begin to roll up towards stand. Your head and your gaze are the last thing to come up. Once you are here, keep the feet about hip distance apart. Take your hands back to your ASIS, so you're back to your hip bones. And first, let's just experiment with moving a pelvis. So tilt the bowl of the pelvis forward, coming into this anterior tilt. This is the way that, unfortunately, a lot of us stand. And then posterior tilt. Tuck the tailbone. Anterior tilt. Posterior tilt. Anterior tilt. Posterior. And now come back to a neutral spine, which for most of us almost feels like a very gentle tuck. We don't want to squeeze the glutes so much. We don't want to clench them. We want a light engagement here as we send the tailbone down, the low ribs knit in towards the hip points, and take your hands to your ASIS. Keep a generous bend in the knees here. You can walk your feet a little bit closer together if that helps you balance. And we're going to find some of those same leg movements standing up. So we're going to challenge our balance, but really focus on setting the pelvis, setting the core, so that same 20% integration. See if you can touch your belly and find some stability there. And then take the hands back to the ASIS, transfer the weight into the left leg, tap the right toes in front of you. See if you can tap your toes gently back by your left foot and then out in front of you. Back, out in front of you, without moving the pelvis while keeping that integration of the core. So if you need to move your hands around to make sure that's happening, or just keep your hands in your hip bones. You can keep going with these taps, or you begin to lift the right knee. Lift the right knee. Lift the right knee. Beautiful. So this movement is coming from the right hip flexors and the right quad. Our low belly is stabilizing the rest of our body, helping to stabilize our pelvis. We're trying not to hike the right hip up as we do this. A gentle bend into that left knee. You can stay here, or you can take it more to or towards straight. So tapping the right leg, lifting, tapping the heel all the way back by that left foot, lifting, tap, lift, tap, lift. Starting to fire up not just the belly. Maybe you start to feel this in your back a little bit. You don't want pain in the back, but this firing up of the QLs and the stabilizer muscles along the spine as we hold the torso in position while this movement comes from the legs. Maybe your quads start to shiver and shake a little bit. That's okay. You can see mine, your hip flexors. You can always come back to this tap if that feels a little bit better. Just trust your body and where you are today. Next time you make it up, see if you can hold tiny pulses without hiking that right hip up. It'll feel terrible. I know. So terrible. Make sure you've got that nice integration of the belly. Maybe you take your hands to your belly like you're your own corset. And slowly release that right leg. Whoo, maybe karate chop that right hip flexor a little bit, or the right quad. Give it a little stretch, sending the hip out to the side. And let's take it to the left leg. Again, find some tilts of the pelvis until you can come back to a nice neutral, which for most of us is a gentle posterior tilt or the tuck, just because we spend so much time hanging out in this position. Micro bend, or more than a micro bend, into the right leg here. Take your hands to your hip bones, transfer the weight into your right foot, and moving just from the leg without moving the pelvis, can you tap the left toes in front and then back, in front and then back, in front, back, front, back, front, back, front, back. Continue, or maybe you start to bend the left knee up. And again, we're trying not to hike that left hip up. We're trying to keep this movement just in the leg bone while the pelvis stays nice and stable. Rooting down through all four corners of the right foot here, keeping that micro bend, and also making sure we're not sliding into that right hip. So we've got our glute med over here on the side. It's going to help to pull us back into this nice integrated balance shaped. Keep lifting the left leg or tapping the toes. Maybe you'd like to add in that straight variation, so bring it up towards straight. And if bringing it up towards straight is a little bit too difficult, you can always bring it to bend, straighten it, lower, bend, straighten it, lower. So all these drills can be adapted to whatever you need in your practice. And this shouldn't be hamstring limiting. So, if straight looks like actually a light bend for you, that's perfectly fine. We're focusing on the stationary abilities of the pelvis, the stabilization of the core, and the work of this left quad and left hip flexor. The next time you are up, hold, tiny pulses. Maybe the right hip's starting to burn, the right outer hip as it works to stabilize us. And slowly lower, karate chop. Maybe tilt the hips to side if that feels good. Next inhale, sweeps your arms up overhead. And as you exhale, hinge at the hips, fold forward, generous bend in the knees. all the way down to Uttanasana. Feet can be hip distance apart here. And this is almost like that Ragdoll variation. So generous bend in the knees so we can bring our low belly down towards our thighs. Inhale, halfway lift. Spine and gaze long. And as you exhale, step it on back to plank pose. Just for a moment here. Here in your plank, lower your knees directly where they are. So it's like an elongated tabletop. Keep the toes tucked. Now, let's take some of those same motions that we did in tabletop to our plank. And again, you don't have to lower the knees if you feel like you've got a boss plank and you want to stay up here, but just make sure that the hips are almost up in line with the shoulders. You're not dumping down or locking out the elbows. So sometimes it's better to make this a little bit easier for ourselves so we can focus on some of the other smaller cues. So, wing your elbows wide, wrap them towards the back of the mat. Keep the micro bend. Now, if you're not sure if you're using your belly in this plank, all you have to do is tug the heels of your hands towards your knees. And if you're not using your belly, what's going to happen? You're going to fall forward. But if you are using your belly, it's going to just roll you to the front of your knees, and then you'll stop, and you'll feel the shaking and the toning of that TVA turn on. So keep hugging the heels of the hands towards the low belly. Reach long through the crown of the head. Pull the shoulders away from the ears. Tip it forward just a little bit more, bending the elbows straight back, close to the side body, lower all the way to your belly. Taking your hands down by your shoulders or your side ribs. You're going to take some floating cobras here. No-handed cobras, which forces you to fire up the back of the body. You know, our abs do go kind of all the way around to the back of us. So it's really important to be able to utilize the whole core as we do some of these belly down back bends. Press the top of the feet into the mat. Lift up the knees. Engage the quads. Push your pubic bone down. So a gentle tuck of the tailbone. That's going to keep this out of the low back. Keep that connection of the pubic bone into the mat this whole time. As you inhale, peel your heart and chest off the ground. You can keep your hands down for just a minute. Roll your shoulder blades down and together on your back. See if, keep pushing the pubic bone down, pull your navel in towards your spine. You can use the strength of the legs and the strength of the back to help hover your hands off the ground. Now as you do so, don't let the shoulders collapse. Pull them down and together on your back. Hover your hands 1 inch off the ground. Push your pubic bone down into the mat. Not clenching the booty, just a gentle push. Just to keep this out of the low back. Maybe as you inhale, you can lift yourself just a little bit higher. And as you exhale, release. We're going to take that one more time. You can come into it straight from the float, or you can first put your hands down and then lift them up, which is how I generally like to do it. Push the top of your feet into the mat, lift up the knees. Gently press the pubic bone into the mat. Hug the belly button in and up. As you inhale, lift yourself up. Maybe peel up the hands, roll the shoulder blades down and together on the spine. Keep the legs nice and strong. That's what's going to help keep you rooted here. Push the pubic bone into the mat. Breathe. Inhale lifts you up a little bit higher. And as you exhale, slowly release. Hands underneath the shoulders. Push back. Child's pose. Knees wide, feet together here. Allow yourself to sink between your thighs. And soften. Next inhale rounds you forward, tabletop position. As you exhale, push your hands down and away from you. Wrap your triceps. Lift the knees. Send the sit bones up and back. Downward facing dog. Beautiful, guys. Inhale, high up on the tippy toes. Ignite the legs, so squeeze the quads. Tuck the tailbone and begin to roll forward to plank, one vertebrae at a time. We're only here in plank for a few moments. As you inhale, think length through the crown of the head and out back through the heels. As you exhale, pull your right knee in towards your nose. Maybe press it into your nose. Hug your right heel in towards your sit bone. Stay here or tilt to the inner edge of your left foot. Extend your right leg over to the left. You can have your hands on blocks here if you need some more clearance. As you extend your leg to the left, place the knife edge of your right foot onto the ground. Push down through the knife edge of your right foot. Push down. See if you can keep the square of your shoulders towards the front of the mat. So what this looks like on blocks is just this motion. Just giving yourself a little bit more clearance. And again, if you need to bend either knee, that's fine. You could stay here or extend the left arm up towards the sky into a gentle fallen triangle. Pushing down through that right arm, making sure not to lock it out. Same wrap of the tricep. Carefully bring the left hand back down to the mat. Re-square the shoulders. Pull the right knee back in towards the nose. So we're in this lifted plank or just a regular plank if your hands aren't on blocks. Roll to the outer edge of your left foot. Extend your right leg long. You can keep it on the ground here, or you can lift it up, or you can take your hand to your foot and gently guide it to the top of your mat. Now, if you have your blocks there, it's going to be a little bit complicated. So what this looks like is we're just stepping the right foot to the top of the mat, but coming from this plank position here. It's a little weird with the blocks. It doesn't have to get all the way to the top of the mat. We're just coming into this light lunge position. Once you're there, you can send it back and forth. My arms are inside my leg here for just a light lizard. Sorry guys, I'm a little distracted because it's like kind of raining on me and I was trying to decide whether or not I should take all the audio equipment underneath the roof. So, pushing down through the power of the hands, puff up through the back of the heart like cat pose. Feel the space you create between your shoulder blades. Step your right foot back. Lower your knees. Send your sit bones back, child's pose. You can leave your hands on your blocks. Let's take it to the other side. Inhale brings you forward to a tabletop, maybe with your hands on the blocks. As you exhale, tuck the toes, tilt the tailbone up towards the sky, push the hands down and away from you. Come up, downward facing dog. Inhale, high up the tippy toes. Tuck the tailbone round forward to plank, one vertebrae at a time. Inhale, length through the crown of the head, not through the heels. As you exhale, pull your left knee in towards your nose. Maybe you can press your nose into your knee, curl your left heel in towards your sit bone. Rock to the inner edge of your right foot. Extend your left leg to or towards the right. Put the knife edge of the foot onto the ground. Now re-square your shoulders towards the top of the mat. So we're always in a rush to just open up to this fallen triangle. Let's not rush ourselves here. Push the knife edge of your left foot into the mat. Maybe you extend the right arm up. Fallen triangle. Doesn't have to be a very deep or back bend expression. We're just really focusing on the strength here of this left arm and the left side body to lift us up. Slowly bring your right hand back down. Curl your left knee back in towards your nose. Rock to the outer edge of the right foot. Extend the left leg out to the left. Now you can place the left leg on the ground. You can take your hand down towards your left leg and pick it up and move it to or towards the outer edge of your left block. So coming into this really light lizard position again. And again, you don't have to have your hands on blocks. Just rocking back and forth. Giving ourselves some love. When you're ready, push down, puff up through the back of the heart. Step it on back, plank pose. Send the knees down. Sit bones towards the heels, child's pose. So we're going to do that motion a few more times, but we're going to go faster and bring in some fluidity and turn it into more of a dynamic movement practice. And the thing about dynamic movement is it shouldn't be full of effort. I mean, obviously there's some effort here. We're going through plank pose and we're focusing on belly integration, but we want to move with about, 60 or 70% of our effort here. So attention to the core, but moving more with fluidity as if we were swimming through water, not necessarily worried about every little detail. So try not to get too attached to it. It's going to move a little bit quicker. Again, you can always go at your own pace, but we're just going to take that same motion that we just did and speed it up a little bit to make it more fluid and build up some heat while we do so. Inhale, forward tabletop. Exhale, tuck the toes. Send the sit bones back, downward facing dog. Inhale, rounds you forward, plank pose. Exhale to settle. Inhale, length through the crown of the head, not through the heels. Exhale, right knee in towards the nose. Inhale, bring the right foot out to the left. Left arm up, fallen triangle. Exhale, bring the hand back down, pull the right knee in towards the nose. Inhale, extend the right leg to the right. As you exhale, bring it on forward, come into your lizard lunge. Inhale here to stay. Exhale, step it back, plank pose. Inhale, lift up, downward facing dog. Exhale to ground down. Inhale, round you forward to plank. Exhale to settle. Inhale, length through the crown of the head, not through the heels. Exhale, left knee to nose. Inhale, extend the left leg over to the right. Inhale, maybe lift the right arm towards the sky. Exhale, brings your right hand back down. Pull your right knee in towards your nose. Left knee towards your nose. And as you exhale, extend the left leg to the left. Take it towards the top of the mat, lizard pose. Inhale to stay. Exhale, push it on back, plank pose. Inhale, lift it up, downward facing dog. And exhale to settle. We're going to keep going. Next inhale, rounds you forward, plank. Exhale to settle. Inhale, lengthen the crown of the head, out through the heels. Exhale, right knee to nose. Inhale, tilt the right leg over towards the left. Exhale, left arm up towards the ceiling. Inhale to stay. Exhale, bring the left hand back down. Pull the right knee in towards the nose. Inhale, bring it on over to the right. Maybe you take your right hand towards your right ankle as you exhale and bring your foot towards the top of the mat. Inhale in your lizard to stay. Exhale, step it on back, plank pose. Inhale, back to downward facing dog. Exhale, ground it on down. Inhale, high up on those tippy toes, round forward plank. Exhale to settle. Inhale, length through the crown of the head. Exhale, left knee towards the nose. Inhale, bring the left foot over towards the right. Exhale, maybe you lift that right arm up. Inhale to stay. Exhale, take the right hand back down. Pull the left knee in towards the nose. Inhale, extend the left leg over towards the left. Exhale, bring the left foot towards the top of the mat. Inhale, lizard. Exhale, step it back, plank pose. Inhale, downward facing dog. Let's do that one more time. Moving at the pace of your own breath. Round forward to plank. Micro bend in the elbows. Pull the right knee in. Take it on over to the left. Fallen triangle. Take it back to the right. Maybe this time you just extend your leg and bring it to the top of the mat without the use of your hand, lizard. Step back plank, core integration. Downward facing dog. Round forward plank. Length through the crown of the head. Left knee in. Curve it over to the right. Fallen triangle. Place the right hand back down. Pull the left knee in towards the nose. Left leg comes to the left. Maybe it just steps to the top of the mat. Lizard. Step it on back, plank pose. Send the hips up and back, downward facing dog. Carefully lower your knees to the mat. Take your hands off block and enjoy a child's pose here for a few moments. The heat that you've created, the body awareness that you've created, just allowing it to settle, to soften. You can release the hold on your belly here if it feels okay on your low back. It's raining on me again. It's part of the fun of the jungle. It doesn't look like it's raining. It's all bright in the sky, but oh well. Next inhale rounds you forward, tabletop. As you exhale, tuck the toes, send the hips up and back, downward facing dog. We're going to be meeting in Malasana or Yogi squat at the top of the mat. So however you'd like to get there. For most of us, that means tiptoeing nicely. And once you get there, feet are up to mat with the part parallel or slightly turned out. Lower the sit bones towards the mat. Now, if you need to sit on a block here or put a blanket roll under your heels, that's perfectly fine. We're just allowing ourselves to sink down just a little bit. Broadness across the collarbones. So here I want you to think about tilting the pelvis forward like you have that bowl as you lift the sternum up, as long as it feels okay in the low back. Just getting some nice compression into the hip flexors. They did a little bit of work for us today, both on that stepping to the top of the mat as well as those terrible football kicks. Now, reversing this motion of the pelvis, reach the hands forward, puff up through the back of the heart, start to tuck the tailbone. Maybe you can do so much, this is just for fun, but slowly lower the feet, slowly lower the sit bones all the way onto the mat. Beautiful. Take your feet in front of you, hip distance apart and parallel. Take your hands to your shins. As you inhale, pull your heart forward, lead with the sternum, push the back of your skull back. As you exhale, just like we did in the beginning, puff up through the back of the heart. See the spine. So tuck the tailbone, pull the navel in and up. Look down at your belly. Are you sucking the navel in and up? Again, reverse it. Inhale, pulls your heart through. Exhale, reverse. Inhale, pulls the heart through. Exhale, reverse, and hold. See if using the power of the low belly, push the feet into the mat. You can release the hands, suck the navel in and up to protect the low back, and slowly, one vertebrae at a time, roll down to a seat. Onto your back. Whew. Take your feet into the air. Press the big toe mounts together. Now, if the hamstrings are limiting, they could stay bent. Just make sure they're nice and active. Take your hands behind your head, interlace your fingers, elbows out wide. Push the back of your low back into the mat, so as if you're squishing blueberries underneath your back. Yes, I did a magical location change. It was raining too much, so I didn't want to ruin the audio equipment. So pushing the lower back into the mat just lightly. What is that going to do? That's going to tilt your tailbone naturally up a little bit towards the sky. So you could take one hand to your low belly if you'd like here. As you push your low back in, you're going to feel your belly turn on and almost feel your tailbone lift. And it's just the very slightest lift. It's almost like a few millimeters, as if someone had strings around your big toes and was just gently pulling them towards the sky. So nothing major here. Keep that. Take your hands back behind your head. Elbows wide. See if you can lift your tailbone just a millimeter more. So again, as if I had my hands around your ankles and we're pulling you up towards the ceiling. Elbows stay wide. See if you could pick up your shoulders. Maybe feeling your belly turn on just a little bit more here. So tailbone is lifted. Elbows are wide. Shoulders are lifted. Slowly release. Inhale, lift the tailbone. Exhale, lift the shoulders. Keep the elbows wide. Inhale, lift both a little bit higher. Exhale, release. Inhale, lift the tailbone. Exhale, lift the shoulders. Inhale, lift both a little higher. It's okay if you shake or shiver. Really feel that belly turn on. Suck your navel towards your spine. Exhale to lower. Inhale, lift the tailbone. Exhale, lift the shoulders. Inhale, lift both a little higher. Press your big toe mounts together. Exhale, release. Inhale, lift the tailbone. Exhale, lift the shoulders. Inhale, lift both a little bit higher. Exhale, release. Inhale, lift the tailbone. Exhale, lift the shoulders. Inhale, lift both a little higher. Exhale to hold. Suck your navel down towards your spine. Inhale to hold. Exhale, release. Whew, release your feet down to the mat. Feet wide, knees together. You can allow the natural arch to come back to your low back. And soften. We're going to do one more core drill here before I wind you down. So extend your arms out to a T, palms face down, pressing into the mat. The point of this is to really get slightly into the twist motion. So the goal is to keep both the shoulders tacked down to the mat. It's not about getting our knees to the ground. It's about keeping the shoulders nice and steady so that we can send the bend and the twist where we want it. Using the strength of your low belly, pull your knees in towards your chest. Press the big toe mounts together. Gently allow your knees, keeping them glued together like you would a mermaid tail, to tip it on over toward the right. Left shoulder stays tacked down, so push your hands into the mat to ensure that happens. That means your knees probably won't get to the ground. That's okay. We want the left shoulder to stay tacked down. If they are flexible enough to get down to the ground, hover them an inch off the ground to make this a muscular movement, not just a stretch. You could stay here, or you can begin to extend the legs towards straight. That's obviously going to make it a lot harder. Legs stay squeezed together, and again, even if you have the flexibility, don't just let the legs rest on the ground. Hover them above the right hand. Keep the left shoulder tacked down. You can always stay in this nice knee bent position here. Next inhale pulls you back up to center. And as you exhale, drop the knees over towards the left, keeping the legs glued together, keeping the right shoulder nice and tacked down. Stay here or extend the legs, deepening the twist. Glue the legs together. Next inhale pulls you back up through center. Next exhale drops those legs over towards the right. Again, hovering the knees if you have the flexibility. Keep the left shoulder tacked down. Maybe you extend towards straight and hover. Next inhale lifts you back up to center. And as you exhale, drop the knees over to or towards the left. Press the right shoulder down into the mat. Stay here or extend the legs towards straight. Next inhale pulls you back up to center. And release. Feet wide, knees together. Constructive rest. You can place your hands on your belly. Giving ourselves a little bit belly love, we're going to be coming into just a gentle bridge pose. Now, if you have a block and you want to take a supported bridge, you're welcome to. Otherwise, take your heels in fairly close towards your sit bones. Feet are parallel and hip distance apart. Tuck the tailbone, so spread the low back across the mat. Take your hands down by your sides or into robot arms or goal posts, keeping the tuck of the tailbone. So turn on your low belly here by lifting up that tailbone. You can even take your hands to your belly and make sure that it's turned on. So keep that. Dig your elbows into the mat. Lift your chest up. Now, if you have a block, you can slide it underneath your sacrum or the big flat bone at the bottom of your lumbar spine. Or you can just lift the hips up using the power of the legs and the shoulders pressing down. If you'd like to walk one shoulder underneath you at a time, you can. Lifting the chest just a little bit more. Keeping the knees hugging in towards the midline as if you had an imaginary block between your thighs. Just finding a gentle stretch across the belly here. And the hip flexors. They all worked hard for us today. They're all part of that core, that central column that helps us stabilize and float and transition smoothly between postures. Take one more deep inhale, puffing up through the chest. And as you exhale, slowly release, roll one vertebrae down at a time. Again, feet wide, knees together, constructive rest. And if it feels comfortable on your low back, you can gently, slowly windshield wiper your knees from side to side. And if you'd like to take your hands back to your hip bones here as you do this, just to understand the motion of your pelvis, you want to allow more of a neutral position here. So for most of us, that means a slight anterior tilt, that tipping of the bowl forward to find that natural curve in the low back as we do this. Because if we tuck too much, especially after we did that light back bend, it can be a little uncomfortable. So just kind of allowing the natural state of the back as we floss the hips. And slowly coming back to center. The whole length of the spine comes onto the mat, so very light tuck of the tailbone. Pull the knees in towards the armpits. Flex the feet. Reach your hands between your legs and then to the outer edges of your feet. Happy baby. And if this isn't comfortable for you, you can use a strap around your feet. Or you can even take one leg at a time, releasing the other one down to the mat. The weight of our hands here, we're not really pulling on the feet so much, it's just the weight of the arms to help us get into this gentle stretch. And you could play with lifting the tailbone up slightly, dropping it towards the mat, lifting it up, dropping it. For me, it feels more comfortable to lengthen the tailbone down towards the mat so I can get my whole back onto the ground. Flexing the feet, maybe rocking back and forth from side to side. And just starting to release any hold that you have on your breath. You can play with extending one leg and then the other. And then when you're ready, releasing, pulling your knees in towards your sternum, wrapping your arms around your shin bones, curling your forehead up towards your knees, and taking a deep inhale here, squeezing everything, your fingers, your toes, your face, your eyeballs, your mouth, your tongue, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And as you exhale, release, side out of the mouth, extend the legs long, arms down by your sides. Allow the feet to flap open, palms face the sky, coming into your final rest here. And take a few moments to set yourself up for success. So tuck the tailbone just to extend the low back here. Find some length. Bring your shoulder blades down and together onto your back, long neck. Close your eyes. Release any hold you have on your breath. Shavasana is probably the most important pose in yoga. It's the posture of digestion and processing. So we've put a lot of little cues into your head today, and maybe we didn't do too many new movements, but again, small changes can have large effects. And so the littlest things that we did, whether that means dragging the heels of the hands towards the knees or keeping the micro bend in the arms, can really change things in your practice if you focus on them. That 20% engagement of the core. Not everything has to be about sit-ups and crunches and push-ups just to get a core workout. Sometimes if we just focus on, what can be even more of a mental challenge of just keeping that engagement as we move through our practice, we can still get a fabulous and more well-rounded central column workout. Taking at least 2 to 3 minutes here to relax in your Shavasana, to download and process the information, the seeds that we've planted today. And only when you're ready, getting up slowly, taking a moment to thank yourself for the time that you've put in. And just being appreciative of everything that your body can do today, all of the effort that it gave you today. Letting go of any expectations you had or expectations you feel weren't met, and just being thankful. Thank you for practicing with me.